Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
My wife is unfamiliar with Blue Water. Returning home to a location he had never visited prior to being referred to as the Mickey Mouse off-rack. The pop equivalent of Ronald Reagan enriched him, which is what caused his John Denver's skin was well known. In the 1970s, sussing an acoustic guitar, his gentle voice, and music that vividly depicted love with the natural world. He became one of the most adored musicians of his era. Compositions such as Take Me Home, Country Roads, The Song of Annie, and The Rocky Mountain High continue to exist now, but behind his cozy public perception as a man who struggled with strain from fame and the fissures in his personal life, particularly his marriage, their love inspired one, according to Annie Martell, one of his greatest hits, but ultimately can code with sadness. And in the days before he passed away unexpectedly, John said something that demonstrated to Annie how he still had a strong affection for her. I'm hoping he wasn't afraid that everything happened so swiftly, for let's almost get into the specifics. Despite the passage of 30 years, those who still recall the admiration for John Denver. On the day that everything changed, the world was startled by a terrible aircraft accident on what made October 12th even more difficult. Token alleged that John Denver was among the most renowned acoustic performers of the he had died in the accident in the 1970s. A country rock musician passed away following the I was piloting an experimental aircraft smashed into the Pacific shortly after takeoff. The news of his passing removed the happiness from a lot of admirers' hearts, but what was much more difficult to comprehend after an autopsy was performed, and the specifics, everyone was left behind the collision. Stunned. If you've never heard of the complete account of John's ordeal, make sure you view this video. John Denver, the well-known vocalist and composer renowned for his poignant and uplifting tunes, have a strong affection for flying that was far more than just his music. He developed an early interest in aviation in life and only became more powerful as the years passed. After he started to Denver's Sky discovered a personal enthusiasm that would develop in tandem with his musical career. His initial forays into in the late 1960s, aviation emerged when he obtained his license as a private pilot. At that moment, he initially sensed the combination of freedom and excitement that accompanied that sensation of flying, ignited something, and he had a desire that would last expand throughout time. Refusing to accept that Denver advanced the fundamentals and looked for out further aviation experience. He went beyond only obtaining a private license. Hefferthermer obtained extra credentials counting an instrument rating that allowed him to take additional flights. Complex meteorological circumstances in addition. Toffet, he ultimately got a commercial. Obtaining a pilot's license is another significance of his aviation career, but for flying in Denver involved more than just licenses or fulfilling specifications. It was about seeking progress and learning what was feasible in the air. According to his flying record, consisted of endless hours, often counter an indication of how seriously he flew every hour while he was in the cockpit, shown his dedication to and improving throughout. The Denver flew a range of aircraft over the years, starting with little single-engine aircraft to more sophisticated ones with many engines. He anticipated every chance to do something different and broaden this range of experiences demonstrated how much he aspired to become a better pilot and take on many obstacles that actually stood about Denver was his level of dedication needed to keep studying. He realized that the aviation industry was always changing, and he wished to maintain his motivation to stay here. Gained respect for his current and improved from other pilots and others participating in aircraft. His passion for flying even expanded to the realm of experimental aircraft that are distinctive and frequently state-of-art aircraft that experimented with novel design concepts and the performance that these aircraft recorded his creativity, providing him with an opportunity to participate in the flight industry's future. That his curiosity brought him to explore types of exploration and adventure in the sky. The experimental planes were the aviation's forward edge, frequently uses innovative technology and distinctive style. Denver's selections, with his consistent curiosity and a desire to learn, were captivated. Addressing these types of difficulties, they provided him the opportunity to participate in advancement only by watching it, but also by taking flight. These planes, for Denver himself, being an experimental aircraft's pilot seats, was not just about flying. It provided he has a direct link to new technical concepts and enabled him to examine his artistic side in aviation. The difficulty of launching something from the mundane was a wonderful fit for his passion for learning and novel experience. At time he piloted an experimental aircraft, another step into the unknown was taken, and he fully embraced it as his passion. Even prompted him to participate in a number of aviation communities and organizations that prioritize aboard these planes in the areas where he encountered readers who were as thrilled as he was about in the skies. Creativity and exploration. Experimental flying was not done by John Denver planes merely for fun. He went up to his duties as an airline pilot with sincerity-wise. He frequently sought opportunities to collaborate with designers and engineers, receiving constructive criticism and insights from his experience in tech endeavors to enhance the security and these aircraft's performance demonstrated how his dedication to flying and how he wished to encourage its expansion. It's crucial to understand that while experimental aircraft can be fascinating, John, they also carry certain hazards. Denver was well aware of the necessity for appropriate instruction and rigorous adherence. Top precautions to take before operating these aircraft. He always placed a high premium on safety, and he took the appropriate actions to safeguard himself while continuing to investigate new prospects for aviation. In October 12 of 1997, both the aircraft industry and the music industry community was severely impacted by the death of John. Denver died in an aircraft accident, arrived as a surprise to Denver, who was not just a renowned musician who was also an seasoned pilot, passed away when his new required a routine experimental aircraft Long Easy sank in Monterey Bay, California. Denver was flying alone that day, which demonstrated his deep passion for flying. His flight was intended to be straightforward, traveling to Los Angeles from Monterey, where he had a performance planned for the following day. Though the full journey was anticipated to take roughly 2 hours, something really doable for somebody with his degree of expertise, but things were only a few minutes after departure went awry, and the crash's news disappeared. Many incredulous despite all of his Denver's training and flight schedule. Flight ended tragically, creating a gloomy. His legacy was clouded by thousands of flying duration and was recognized in aviation communities as a knowledgeable and devoted pilot. He continuously tried to increase his understanding of flying and skills. His passion for flying demonstrated his passion for the sky, but moreover acts as a sobering reminder that even experienced pilots may encounter unforeseen issues during flight. The examination into the Denver crash route and Long Easy raised significant information regarding the accidents caused. The National Transportation Safety Board and TSB carried out a thorough analysis and determined that the engine was the primary problem. Breakdown. The collision was linked to a significant issue with the aircraft's fuel system design error that resulted in a deficiency of appropriate fuel supply to the engine, which resulted in this failure results in a complete loss of electricity. It occurred not long after takeoff. When pilots are under time pressure and room to react. Departing Denver with limited choices in spite of his upbringing and profound comprehension of flight, Denver encountered a circumstance that was almost incapable of recuperating from the engine's power, and the aircraft started to descend. He exerted every effort while in altitude to take back command, but the circumstance was severely harsh. Even considering his background, he was unable to halt the plane's flight down into the tragedy. Monterey by an accident reveals several for the aviation industry, including the most important lesson learned is the necessity of thorough pre-flight inspections and regular PP. Even for extremely skilled pilots, John Denver, for example, can be unexpected by concealed mechanical problems are ignored. This incident demonstrates how the importance of pilots checking gauge component of their aircraft in detail. Prior to takeoff. It additionally highlights the unique difficulties of flying planes that are experimental, such as the route, and these aircraft frequently have new and unique design elements. However, these features can provide advantages that they could develop into significant issues. When pilots operating these kinds of aircraft in an emergency must use additional caution and remain vigilant, since their distinctive designs can make emergencies more difficult at times. One of the crash's components was that no distress call was ever placed by Denver in the least seconds before impact. Aviation it is explicitly stated in procedures that all pilots, regardless of how well versed they are, emit emergency alerts and talk to air traffic control in times of crisis. The event that the engine fails, all pilots are anticipated, if there are any major issues, to contact air traffic right OI authority to notify and inquire about the emergency. This protocol is more than just a formality, which is intended to safeguard the individuals on board and to ensure emergency personnel can react as fast as such that, when there is no distress signal, was taken off the aircraft at Denver, generated a number of queries and hypotheses regarding what could have occurred. One explanation might be because the engine failure struck with such suddenness that Denver lacked the necessary time to reply, make contact for assistance in situations where an engine unexpectedly fails, and a pilot might only have a few seconds to take action, with communication almost infeasible at such pressure. Another perspective centered on whether the emergency communication methods on the aircraft were operating as intended. Despite the fact that investigators did not discover any particular issues with the aircraft's communic equipment, the absence of A concerns were nevertheless aroused by the distress call regarding the dependability of those systems in the aviation industry. Presently has a reliable method for speaking to the airfast emergency services and traffic management called mean the difference between survival and wild sorrow. This instance demonstrates why it is crucial to conduct routine inspections, then verify by testing those systems. They'll work when it's most needed. The fact that there was no distress call Denver's collision remains notable as a disturbing mystery that serves as a reminder of how unpredictable aviation crises mind. The importance of having clear and it is evident that quick communication tools are available. Why emergency systems need to be more than just found on all airplanes, but must also be trustworthy and available to help at any moment in question. Following the tragic airline accident that took the well-known singer's life, John Denver, the National Songwriter and TSB, the Transportation Safety Board, started a thorough and comprehensive search to determine precisely what occurred. Their objective was to determine the series of actions that resulted in the accident and offer some clarification on what caused it. The investigation started with a thorough and meticulous examination of both the scene of the collision and the remnants of the plane's. Knowledgeable investigators went piece by piece through the debris, considering each piece of wreckage as a potential indication that the object was captured on camera, documented, and thoroughly examined. The goal of this meticulous procedure was not just to quantify the harm, but also to determine how the mishap happened by examining each piece's landing spot and what state the investigators were in, attempted to reconstruct the aircraft's design and search for any mechanical or structural problems that could have contributed to part in the collision. The NTSB also said with those who saw the collision, these witnesses provided real-time first-hand reports of what they observed during and following the incident. Their accounts, together with the supporting data discovered at the location, aided their researchers create a more lucid comprehension of the events that day. Assembling these diverse fragments of the actual wreckage and eyewitness accounts enabled the team to obtain a more comprehensive view of the incident. Though this inquiry was unable to provide John Denver to reverse what has occurred, the outcomes were significant in enhancing aviation safety and introducing a degree of situational closure. After reviewing every piece of evidence, THE and TSB managed to arrive at a firm conclusion of the cause of the terrible incident that resulted in John Denver's death. A detailed analysis outlined the procedures that caused the collision, and it indicated engine failure as the primary cause of VIF. The inquiry raised awareness to a significant issue with the aircraft fuel system. It turned out that the problem started with the way fuel was piped to the engine, and greater specifically, the fuel selector valve it is responsible for guiding the fuel. The flow had been configured improperly. Due to this error, the engine was receiving insufficient fuel, which resulted in it abruptly lost power. Of this kind is quite risky, particularly for the pilot of the plane, regardless of their level of expertise. Denver, after the engine failed, was forced to handle a steep descent using a plane that wasn't own thing as longer under appropriate control. What was particularly noteworthy was the NTSB's results supported earlier concerns expressed by pilots who have operated comparable aircraft models that the previous reports had indicated issues with the fuel system, implying that the crash of John Denver wasn't a singular instance. Rather, it emphasized more general concerns related to the dependability and security of that specific news about John's plane. The October deadly plane disaster in Denver, 12, 1997 spread swiftly, departing many worldwide are shocked and lamenting. The singer-songwriter, who was well known for memorable songs such as Take Me Home, Annie's Song, and Country Roads, have impacted numerous people's lives with his passionate voice and poignant lyrics. The impact of unexpected death was profoundly emotional, that went well beyond the realm of music circles. Everyone, including family, friends, and fans, experienced grief after the death of a loved one who had grown to be an important component of the tidal surge of grief. That massive fellow musicians came next, and both listeners and condolences and recollections that just the extent of John Denver's influence. People that enjoyed his music were his honesty and character had gained him a devoted following, and for a lot of his songs were more than just amusement. Personally, Lisa, a woman from Colorado, acknowledged the depth of Denver's claim that music had influenced her life. Listened to John Denver's songs growing up. His tunes served as the background music for me when I was young, and learned of his sad accident. It felt unreal to me, as though I had lost a part of me. Past. Her thoughts mirrored the sentiments of numerous people who experienced intimate association with his songs that due to an emotional connection. His passing felt like millions of dollars in personal loss. Despite John, his death was devastating. Denver's musical legacy persisted and proved supporters consolation in the years that afterward. A number of albums were made available after his passing, allowing others to listen to fresh music and experience an ongoing relationship with his job. One, the Wildlife concert, was particularly noteworthy. Collection of live recordings from this album's last tour provided listeners with a striking examination of Denver's musical talent. This acted as a prompt for what he introduced to the music industry all through his life. Whilst listening to his music played live again drew viewers back to the simplicity and warmth that characterized his concerts, including the Wildlife concert. Insulated Denver's intense passion for the outdoors and his commitment to environmentalists is something that was always there in his personal life, as well as his music. The CD became a fan favorite who were as concerned about safeguarding environment outside of his music. John Denver homage have persisted. Over time, both artists and fans have endeavored to preserve his legacy so something the next generation can learn about and honor his efforts. These tributes have existed in a variety of formats, including tribute performances, showcasing his music, and the museum plays that pay tribute to his life and music as well as his impact on the music's environmental consciousness and industry. In only of their last discussions prior to John Denver stated something after his passing that remained with Annie indefinitely. According to the call began simply for Annie. Ho had sent him birthday roses, and they spoke when he called to thank her, catching up for a moment and swapping some of his comments. However, right before the call ended, Denver stopped at that moment in a silent and but But Annie, he said in a genuine voice. Love you, Annie was surprised when all they had experienced, including the distance between those highs and heartbreaks, words were still powerful. She replied, John, I love you too. Have a wonderful day. Journey, and I'll speak with you once you're. It would be their last call, not two eventually. On October 12, 1997, John Denver perished in an aircraft accident. He was 53 even on the California shore. Following their traumatic divorce, he never ceased to care about her. He went on delivering flowers to her on her birthday and long after they had left. On Mother's Day, their individual paths. His parting remarks to Annie didn't focus on remorse or guilt. Instead, they were merely truthful, and they demonstrated that in spite of all, the love remained. What do you think of John? The terrible catastrophe in Denver leaves us. Please leave a comment below. We'd love to hear it. Please let me know if this video was useful. Click like and share it with others. And follow the channel to learn more. Thank you for seeing this material. In the next video we'll see you.